When did you have to throw your crazy ex-girlfriend in jail? I knew Jalen was insane, but I never thought she'd hurt the one thing we both loved. We'd been together for 3 years, and things had gotten progressively worse. She'd check my phone while I slept and wake me up screaming about female coworkers who liked my Instagram posts. She threw my PS5 off the balcony because I played games with my brother instead of watching movies with her. But the final straw was when she stabbed her coworker Janet with a pencil during a meeting because Janet complimented my photo on Jalen's desk. Janet didn't press charges because Jalen convinced everyone it was an accident, said she was reaching for a folder and slipped. But I saw the security footage her manager showed me. Jalen drove that pencil straight into Janet's shoulder while staring her dead in the eyes. That night I told Jalen I was done. I couldn't live like this anymore, walking on eggshells and wondering when she'd snap again. The breakup got complicated fast because of Biscuit. He was our golden retriever mix we'd adopted together 2 years ago from the shelter. Technically, we'd split the adoption fee, and both our names were on the paperwork. Jalen loved that dog as much as I did. She'd cook him special meals and buy him designer collars and take hundreds of photos of him sleeping. Biscuit was probably the only thing keeping her somewhat grounded. We spent 2 weeks arguing about who got to keep him. I had a better work schedule for walks, but she had a bigger apartment. I taught him all his tricks, but she took him to all his vet appointments. We even tried making a custody schedule like divorced parents, but Jalen would cry hysterically every time I came to pick him up. She'd hold Biscuit and sob into his fur saying I was stealing her baby. I started looking for apartments that allowed dogs while Jalen sent me dozens of texts daily. Sometimes she'd beg me to come back. Sometimes she'd threaten to disappear with Biscuit where I'd never find them. Her mood swings were getting worse without me there as a target. Her roommate texted me that Jalen hadn't been going to work and just stayed in bed with Biscuit all day. 3 weeks after I moved out, I got a call at 2 a.m. Jalen was hysterical and screaming that something was wrong with Biscuit. I drove over immediately thinking maybe he'd eaten something bad or gotten sick, but when I got there, the scene was so much worse than I imagined. Biscuit was on the kitchen floor in a pool of blood. There were scissors next to him covered in red. He was breathing but barely conscious, and there were multiple stab wounds on his side. Jalen was kneeling beside him pressing towels against the wounds, but the blood kept coming. On the counter was a note in her handwriting that said, "If I can't have him, then no one can." "What did you do?" I screamed at her. "I didn't mean it. I just got so mad thinking about you taking him away." I pushed her aside and wrapped Biscuit in the bloodiest towel. He whimpered when I lifted him and his eyes rolled back. Jalen tried to follow me to my car, but I shoved her back. "You're insane. You're actually insane." The emergency vet was 20 minutes away, but it felt like hours. I kept one hand on Biscuit's chest to make sure he was still breathing while I drove. Blood soaked through the towel and onto my seats. At red lights, I'd pet his head and tell him he'd be okay, even though I wasn't sure he would be. The vet team rushed him into surgery immediately. They said he'd lost a lot of blood, but the wounds had missed major organs. It would be touch and go for the next few hours. I sat in that waiting room covered in my dog's blood and finally called the police. I sent them photos of the scene and the note and told them everything. They arrested Jalen that morning. She'd tried to clean up the blood, but forensics found plenty of evidence. Her lawyer tried to argue temporary insanity, but the note showed premeditation. She got 18 months for animal cruelty, and I got a restraining order against her. Biscuit pulled through after 3 surgeries and 2 weeks at the hospital. The vet bill was almost $8,000, but I didn't care. He had a shaved side covered in stitches and moved slowly, but his tail still wagged when he saw me. The vet said he was lucky the wounds weren't deeper. I moved us to Denver the next month and found a house with a big fenced yard where Biscuit could heal in peace. He still has scars under his fur and sometimes flinches when people move too fast.